All right. Well, like I said, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Beyond Access series webinars. My name is Balaish. I'm the Family Empowerment Communications Coordinator for the New York City Department of Education and the Special Education Office, and I will be your host for tonight's webinar. We are very excited for tonight's webinar, tonight's session, Student with Intellectual Disabilities, Getting Ready for College. We will go over an alternative pathway for students with intellectual disabilities on how to attend college and earn a college certificate, as well as discuss expectations, preparing and searching for the right college. And this session will be led by our amazing guest speaker, Kathy Becht, coming from ThinkCollege, an institution for community inclusion. But before I hand it over to Kathy, I do want to just go over a few housekeeping notes as per usual. General reminder, no chat function during this session, but there is the Q&A function. So you'll be able to ask questions throughout the presentation, and we'll try to answer as many as we can, but we do set that time at the end of the presentation to make sure that we can answer any of the Q&A questions that pop up then at that time. Now, as always as well, don't worry if you miss anything. This session is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube page on the following day tomorrow. So if you miss anything, don't worry, it'll be posted and you'll get that email from me tomorrow, as well as any resources and links that we are talking about tonight. So, again, don't worry, we'll make sure that you get all the materials needed. Now, as I mentioned earlier, tonight's session is led by Kathy Becht, the Technical Assistance Coordinator for ThinkCollege, and we are really delighted to have here to go over some amazing tips on how to get ready for college. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Kathy.
Thanks, Ori. I'm going to share my screen so we can get started. Oh, there we go. Oh no, hold on. Try that one more time. Oh, that's weird. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble. Let me get set up here.
No worries.
Stop. Why did it double on me like that? It's done this once before. Do not know.
Yeah, I might need a bigger bag too.
Sorry, everyone, just a few seconds.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
All right. Pressed on the wrong one. Okay, now we're good. All right, sorry about that. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Kathy Becht, and I am with, as Ori said, ThinkCollege at the Institute for Community Inclusion at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. And I'm happy to be here with you all and to talk a little bit about college, tips and tools for families and transition educators. So, just to give us a framework of what we're talking about today, I want to just mention the transformative power of college, that when any student goes to college, they run into, they have classes, they learn new knowledge, they meet lots of new friends that they often keep for years to come, that they gain a sense of agency, of the ability to make choices and to understand they affect their own choices. They're exposed to the world around them that is beyond their own home, Some of it's good and some of it a parent might think isn't great, but they're required to begin to make choices and decisions about the world. They begin to learn some independence. And, this is a big one. And they have an opportunity to fail and to learn from their failures. And they gain perspective about their own lives. So college is, yes, classes and coursework and the certificate, but it is so much more. Many people ask, but why college for a student with intellectual disability? Here's a young man who finished a program. He has an intellectual disability. And he said, well, I got to complete my program and go to work full-time at Amazon and make some pretty good money and get benefits. So that's why all of these programs are set up so that students will have a job when they are done. When we look at students who have an intellectual disability and who have gone to college, 59% of them are employed a year after graduation. While we'd like that number to be higher, when we look at students with intellectual disability who didn't go to college and how many are employed, it's under 20%. So it's almost 3 times the number of students who, if they go to college, they're more likely to be employed. And employed can mean 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week. It really just depends, but that's an exciting percentage to really consider. And so people say, so really, how do students with intellectual disabilities go to college? And I really am talking about students who might read at 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade level, whose math might be, I can count 1 to 1 up to 10, but that's it. I don't know my coins. I can't identify different coins. And I don't add and subtract. But these students still go to college and earn certificates and learn a lot. So I ask you to believe in the opportunities, to think about, to consider that college options are growing. A number of years ago, maybe I want to say it's 10 or 15 years ago, we had about 40 programs in the US. Today, we have over 300. That's still a small number. It's only like 6% of all the colleges in the US, but it's growing. Students and parents need to know about these opportunities. That's why you're here, hopefully, and why I'm presenting with you. High school must be student-led, inclusive, and with high expectations for students to truly succeed in college. But I will tell you that many students who go to college who have intellectual disability weren't in inclusive settings in high school and are still doing very well. So believe in the possibilities that these students have these options and can succeed in them. So I want to give you just a brief sense of how they're going to go to college when they have low reading levels and low math levels. So there are alternate admissions for admission processes and requirements. The students typically are not required to have a high school diploma or in New York, it's a Regents diploma. In other states, it may be called something else, but it's a college seeking diploma, if you will. The students are not required to have that. They can have a certificate of completion or whatever they may have received for completing high school, but not getting that diploma. These students that attend these programs at colleges and universities are not, for the most part, non-degree seeking students. So they're not going to get an associate's or a bachelor's. They're going to earn a certificate, which would be an undergrad. Obviously, they wouldn't have a graduate degree, certificate that they are earning. In order to earn the certificate, they're following a specific program of study that should be focused on a specific area of study. Now, this is a new field. It really is new. Only in the past, 15 years have we really had programs where the students are taking college classes, not high school on a college campus, but students with intellectual disability are taking college classes generally for audit, which means they're not getting credit for it, but they are learning a lot. Programs are anywhere from 1 to 4 years. Their assignments are generally modified, and the support level that the students receive is not 24/7. There's not someone there all day, every minute of the day. So there is some independence that's expected. So the student experiences, as I mentioned, they're enrolling in courses, sometimes for credit and most often for audit. They also have internships or work study where they are employed in many cases, both on and off campus as the years progress. They are engaged in campus life in clubs and activities and events that are occurring on campus. They are a part of those. They are learning to live, and I like to say interdependently, because truly none of us live independently. Many of us have specific people that we can depend on. So it's an interdependence, if you will, or we know where to get the resources to help us be independent. And then students are learning about their agency and their ability to make choices. So when we think about academics, one of the things that we may talk about is what college courses can the students take? They can take, depending on the program you go to, but the gold standard is they can take any course that doesn't have a prerequisite. So are they going to take advanced biology for seniors in college? No, they're not, but they might take intro to biology if they were interested in that. The college courses, as I said, are for audit or for credit. They might also, there's a term called zero credit, which isn't audit, but it's along the same line. So it just depends on the institution. And are there separate courses? So that means, are there courses that are just for students with intellectual disability? And while we would say the gold standard is that there shouldn't be, in many programs, they have developed one or two courses. Some programs have developed a lot of courses that are separate. And again, that's not our gold standard. That's not what we're looking for when students are going to college, because they are learning a lot of new skills in many ways. It doesn't have to be just in a separate classroom. So these are some of the questions. That you want to ask when checking in on these colleges. And, what's the experience going to be like for the student? What's a typical day like? How does the student find out or engage in the campus activities? Are they allowed to engage in all the activities? Can they go to a football game or a basketball game or a soccer game as a student? And the answer should be yes. They can access everything on campus, including the clinic, including the mentor services or tutoring services or counseling services. What do the students do in their free time? That's generally the question I get the most from families. And students choose. This is where some of the choice and the agency comes in. In some programs, there's much more structure, and they make sure that the students have activities that they are engaged in. In other programs, while the students are required to maybe engage in, let's say, 2 events a semester and a club a semester, 5 activities of that club, there may be something like that, but they're not directing the students to it, but the student has to do it in order to pass, in order to earn their certificate. So it depends on the level of support and the level of structure within each program. So that's another question to ask, is what is that level? So now I gave you just a quick picture of what the college maybe looks like, what the program looks like. Now I want to tell you about our database on thinkcollege.net. And what you can find on the database to learn about these over 300 programs, college programs. So this database has been, we started it in 2009. It is a self-report of information. What that means is that I didn't go to the college and find out what it's about and then come and put the information in our database. They sent us the information. And just as you probably are aware, every teacher, principal, and individual has a different definition of what inclusion is. These programs may have differing definitions of what inclusion is. Oh gosh, hold on a second. Looks like my battery's not plugged in. Goodness sakes. Well, I'm just going to have all kinds of technical stuff today, aren't I? Let's see, that should do it. Doesn't look like it is. Hold on. Now, that's going to be a problem. Let's see. There we go. So getting back to it. So I want to tell you about these college programs and how you can look them up. So college search option, we have a number of options available. One of the things you want to look for is how to find a best fit for your son or daughter. And then the college search listing, we want you to be aware, is not an endorsement by Think College of any of the programs on the list. As I said, they are self-report information that's provided on those lists, but it's not an endorsement. So I want you to be aware of that. So as I said, in 2004, I was wrong, it was even lower, 25 programs. Today we have 300 and I think it's up to 15 now. So that's a huge jump. And that's because of what the law in the Higher Ed Opportunity Act has really encouraged these programs to develop. And as part of the Think College grant, one of the things that came out of that was funding some of these programs to just get started. Then they have to fund themselves after that. So I want to give you an idea. You're in New York. So when we look at this map, you can see that Pennsylvania has 19 programs. Where's New York? New Jersey has 10, Delaware 1, Rhode Island 2. So you can see how many programs are around that area. North Carolina has a large number at 15. Oh, there's New York, 32. So the programs, and I want to tell you too, are all different. So you really have to ask questions about it. So this map is on the website. And then the next one I want to show you is these are the numbers of programs that are approved by the Department of Ed. So it's not accredited, but it's kind of a step toward accreditation, if you will. These programs are following specific guidelines that the Department of Ed said they have to be doing to be approved by the Department of Ed. And that approval is called a CTP approval, Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary Ed Program Approval. And so that is also listed on the website. So I want to mention that. The reason why CTP approval is important is because if the program has that approval, then the students attending that program, if eligible, can apply for federal student aid. All right, so I'm going to show you, we're going to look at the college search now. And this is what that page is going to look like, but I'm going to go to the website so you can see me kind of maneuvering around on the page itself. All right, so when I go to thinkcollege.net, what this is going to come up, this is the college search. Let me take you to where thinkcollege.net, and I'm going to see this. All right, let's make it a little bigger. There we go. And so this is where we are. What you're going to look at are these two things. One that is, let me find my little annotation. One that is students and families here, and then the other one is resources here. These are the drop downs that you're going to look at. You want to look at those and say, all right, that's where your information is. All right. And so we're going to look at resources. Got to get rid of this annotation thing. House. We're going to look at the resources, and from there, you're going to see the drop-down college search. So that's what we're looking at right now. There's some other pieces that we can talk about, but that's the one we want to look at the moment. And so then you're going to see this page come up, and this is our college search. So here it shows you the map I showed you before, the number of programs in each state. And there are a couple of things up here, and I want you to notice that some of the items are in a different color. And so, for example, commonly asked questions right here is in blue. That means it's a link. So you can click on that and you can get to your, what are those commonly asked questions, and it'll take you right to it. All right. And then also questions to ask college programs, a downloadable guide. That is in blue, so it's a link. So those are some pieces I want you to know about. The other piece that is important is coming over here and looking at favorites, this piece here. So when I click on, when I go do my searching, if I click on the save the heart button, it'll begin to create a list for me of the programs I like. So that's a nice little tool to be aware of. This box just tells us what new programs were just added. And we don't know if they're really new or if they just decided to add their program to us. So that we just know it's new on there. And then here's your search box. So if I said, all right, I want to look for all the programs in New York. I always spell New York wrong. Then now it's going to pull up and you see I've got, get bigger. I've got 10 of 31 programs. So that's a lot. It said 29 on the map, but that's because the map hasn't been updated in the last couple of months. And so we're now up to 31 in New York. And so you can go through here, and I want you to see that this, when it underlines, is a link. So if I want to look at what is College Steps at Rockland Community College, then I'm going to click on this link to look further. Here's my save button here. If I click on that, it'll save a couple. And we're going to go ahead and click on it because I want to show you later. And you'll see now it says saved. I'm going to do the quick look. What does that mean? And that means it just gives you some quick pieces of information. All right. It doesn't have housing. It doesn't have CTP approval. Students have graduated or exited from high school, and then the location. So it's just a quick look. But if I want to look more, I'm going to click here. Now, this gives you a program website. Not all of them have a website, but this one does. A contact person, and then your address. So let's go up and look more and see what we have. There are a lot of information here on this one. And again, it's going to give you, there are 8 different categories of information we ask for. So is it public or private? Is it a 2-year college or a 4-year university? And so it goes down through this. Who is it affiliated with? So this one is a dual enrollment. So it's affiliated with the school district. If it's not a dual enrollment, if it's post-secondary ed only, it won't be affiliated with the school district. Here's an admissions link. You can go right to that and find out what do their admissions forms look like. How can I apply? The age range, 16 to 26. There are a lot of programs that look like this, 18, 19 to 26, and they top out at 26. But there are a lot, there's at least 40 programs that don't have a top level. So they don't cap out at a certain age. Talks about the cost. This one doesn't give you much information. Some of them give you much more information about the cost. The academics. What's the employment like? What are they looking at? What's expected of the students? Do they have housing, and do they have extracurricular organizations? Now this here, the students can participate. So I wanted to give you a sense. Here's those 8 categories that you can look at for every program. Now let's go back and create. I'm going to click a couple of these for the save because I just think this is the coolest thing. And then it's going to get smaller again. And then I'm going to do a see my favorites. Okay. And I clicked on 2. So there's my favorites. Now I'm going to do a compare and download, and it's going to give me a spreadsheet. All right. And so you can print this out, or you can just save them like that. So I wanted you to see that you had that as an option. And then, all right, so let's go back here then. So that gives you an idea of what you're going to look at. If I said, you know, I really don't want to do New York, maybe what I want to look for is, I want to look in Alaska. Okay, it's going to pull up Alaska, but I also want to look in more states. So I'm going to go down here and all the states show up. The only thing it doesn't do is every time I click a state, it kind of resets. So I have to go down and click it again if you want to do a couple of states, but you can. All right, so now this one's going to show me Alaska, Delaware, and Massachusetts. All right, and how many there are in those states. All right, so that's, and I've got a couple pages there. What does it tell us we had? So 21, there's 21 options there. The other thing you can do is if you only want to look at programs that are offering where the students are eligible, where the program can allow students to apply for FAFSA or for the federal financial aid. If they have a CTP, you can click here and it will sort those out so that you only have that. If you only want residential programs, if you want programs that aren't affiliated with school districts, so they're only post-secondary ed, you can click on that. And then there's a couple others. Primarily, these programs are going to serve students with intellectual disabilities. Sometimes a student with autism also has an intellectual disability, but it's not identified on their IEP or in their diagnosis, if you will. That doesn't mean they don't necessarily also have an intellectual disability. So some of these, you're going to want to call and ask each of the programs about that. And so you can ask, can students take programs for credit? You can sort by that. If you want to go to a junior college or a 4-year. So it just gives you a sense of what are some other things that we can sort by to learn more about these programs. So that's a quick look. Now, what I have done for you is in the PowerPoint. There we go. In the PowerPoint, I have put all these things I just showed you are in the PowerPoint. So if you weren't here, and I know that Ori said he was going to provide a couple of handouts for you from some of the PowerPoint pages. So the search features I showed you, the parent FAQ section. So I've showed you these pieces and that college comparison. All right. So this just gives you the step-by-step to go back through what I just did, which is impossible to do unless you have something to follow. So I wanted to give you something to follow. There's the other section that I showed you that's on our website, the students and families section. And I think that's a really important section to look at. And so let's look at that one. In students and families, the drop downs show us, again, the college search. So you can find it in both places. Emerging advocate student group. So that's for the students. And they can be in high school or college, it doesn't matter, or out of college, to begin to get involved with some other student advocates. There's a student corner section, which is primarily for your sons and daughters or your students if they're on the webinar with us. And so each one of these boxes will give you a little bit more information. This one is asking a student 10 questions about college. We have a couple that are videos that are nice for the students to look at and get a sense of what college is like. Hear from students at Vanderbilt. This is a wonderful film, Intelligent Lives, that was developed about students with intellectual disability who are attending college. And so these are a number of different resources for students. If we go back and say, let's look at family resources, then what we have are, again, each one of these blue pieces, when you hover over it and get the underline, it's a resource to click on. So Think College Learn module, that's a fun one. And that one, we can learn all about these college programs. So there's an introduction. And this is just a module that goes through understanding what it means for our students with intellectual disability to go to college. Choosing a college, it really walks you through it. It's very, very nice. Changing roles of families, you go to this section, and then there's some video and there's some information to read, some specific forms for you to look at. So it's pretty in-depth and gives you a lot of good information about that. So that's looking at that section. Again, on these pages is the frequently asked questions. And that's really helpful. If you look at each one of those, let me go to it because I just feel like it's so much more helpful if we go to it. if I can get my mouse over there. So if we look at it and we go to the family section, I think, did I miss? Oh, there it is. So here's their questions. And each one you click on it and it'll come down with some information for you. All right. So these are just some quick questions and answers for you. What does it mean to audit a college class? And it gives you a little bit of an explanation. So this is a nice beginning for you. Here's some video. Well, this one is a video that's really nice. You can watch in the trailer form or the longer 25-minute form about going to college for students with intellectual disability. There's a Facebook group for parents that is that Think College has started. Only parents it's asked that only parents join it. So we have a little, are you a parent check off? And if you are, then you're enabled to join that. And then when you have more questions, if you click on this link on the page or write an email that says to Think College TA for technical assistance at gmail.com, then you'll get me or you'll get Kate here or one of my colleagues, and we'll answer some questions for you. So that's on the family resources page. There is another resource. If we go down to resources by topic, each one of these pages gives you more in-depth resources by these topics. And so here's one for families. Here's one for paying for college. So if you want to find out what's available, how do you get help paying for college for students with intellectual disability, each one of these boxes is another resource for you. Some of them are webinars, some of them are documents, but we do have, I'm looking for that one that we just did, scholarships. We do have a document that we just did, just updated it, so 2022, and it's all about what scholarships are open to students with intellectual disabilities. And it goes down by disability, autism, and Down syndrome, because some are very specific to that. Other disability scholarships, state scholarships, some states do have scholarships for students to attend college, and then a little more information. So that's the kind of resource that we are trying to provide for families. And again, I want you all to say this with me. The blue means it's a link. And so if I clicked on that, it would take me to find more out about that. Are we doing on time? 7:30. Okay. So that's our frequently asked questions page. And this is, again, just a screenshot of it to give you a sense of it. There are news features. So we have stories that are written on a regular basis. So each time you come to that, you should see a different story. Oh, that's not what I wanted. All right. So the next step I wanted to give you was, what are some resources to help you as a family prepare for college? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a page of a resource, but not the entire resource, because you can go through that and read it yourself. But these resources are also on what I call a Hyperdoc. So it's one document that has the links on there, and you can download, print, redo yourself. These documents are all free, and resources are free for families, teachers, students to use as you see fit. This one talks about how to prepare for the college expectations. What are those expectations? So for example, the first expectation here is independently travel to and from college or employment. Move that thing. Or I wonder what that's doing. Yep. Oh, that's funny. All right. We got that off of there. Or internships. So to get ready for college in middle school and secondary, our students or our children should be learning about public transportation or about Uber or Lyft or some of the transportation options that are there for individuals with disabilities. So they want to start learning about what are those things available, and then what are the safety precautions that I need to know to handle that. I'll give you one example. My son, who also has an intellectual disability and attended college, before he went to college, he was riding a city bus. And before he got on the bus, he was at the bus stop waiting to come home from work. And he called me and he said, "Mom, this guy wants me to give him money." And I said, "Well, what do you think you should do?" That's always my rule. Ask the question, don't answer it. And he said, "I don't think I should. It's my money." I said, "Good. I don't give him your money then." And so then what he did, he problem solved. He went back into his place of employment. It was a restaurant, told his boss the guy was bothering him, and his boss came out and spoke to the person to leave him alone. So those are the kinds of things that we need our young adults to begin to learn. And again, every student is going to be different in their readiness to be learning these things, but you pick and choose for what fits your family and your children. Learning to navigate campus, and that could be the high school campus, independently, or parts of the campus independently. So, but again, that means allowing them to make the mistake, get lost, and then find someone to ask to help them find where they need to go. So it's all of these pieces, problem solving in the community, maintaining important personal information like passwords. Oh my gosh, I have a hard time with that, but we need to teach our sons and daughters to have strategies for that as well. Using and managing funds, identifying themselves with the disability, self-identify, because for college, if they want to get accommodations, then they need to be able to identify that they have a disability, and these are the accommodations I need or I will ask for. And so there's more. And this area, this section is on personal independence, but there's I think 4 pages to this document. And this document is listed on that Hyperdoc that I told you about. This is a magazine that is so cool. I wanted to show it to you. And again, this is on the Hyperdoc. It's called an Impact magazine from the University of Minnesota. And they did a recent, the entire magazine was done on post-secondary ed for students with intellectual disability. And so there are some phenomenal articles in here that I thought it would be really helpful for many of you to read. Wonderful pictures and wonderful perspectives from families, from, I think there's one from employers, from staff in colleges, from educators in college. So it's really a wonderful resource for you to learn more about it. So I wanted to make sure to mention that one to you. This is a resource page on preparing for college. So again, I'm giving you a document. I showed you that one document about expectations. This page has, and let's see if I can find them all. This page has 20 powerful strategies, checklists for tips for IEP teams, sharing dozens of IEP goals, charts, differences between high school and college. So all this text in blue, bold blue, are links for you to click on. So that's what I want you to be aware of, is when you look at these resource web pages, the links are embedded within there, typically in blue, not always, rarely underlined. So if you hover, it'll underline. So I wanted you to see that. But this page just talks about a number of resources for you that are here. There are also resources on the parent and family page that I showed you. All right. The student corner, I showed you that one when we were on the website. So that's another one that's a really good resource. And again, here is that thinkcollegeta@gmail.com for questions. So now let's talk about transition. And in every presentation I do, I have to put my son in there somewhere. This is my son, Pete. He's now 32. He went to the University of Central Florida and was so proud of it. He was on probation, almost got kicked out because he thought college was for partying. it doesn't matter whether you have a disability or not, you're still going to think about college as being a fun place, which it is, but you also have to go to class. You can't skip it, all the classes all the time. But this is my son, Pete, and he loved college. And so when we talk about, oh, Kathy, stop touching that. When we talk about college, and thinking about transitioning to college, we need to talk about exploring the high school campus and the opportunities on campus for clubs, the college options that are shared on campus. What are the student stories of going to college? These are things that I know when my son was in high school, I didn't have the energy to go help him look at college clubs. I should have, and I didn't do it because that would have helped him learn how to do it moving on to college. But this is something that if I'd known more about needing to do that, I would have found the energy to do it. Looking for support from families. Families need to understand that there's a changing role for any young adult moving to adulthood, and that is no different than for our students with intellectual disabilities, for our sons and daughters, that while the changing role may be different, it still needs to change from that child to that adult. And that's one that I think is hard for any parent, no matter who your son or daughter is, but it's even harder for those of us who have children with disabilities. Student choice. We need to be supported in giving them choices. We need to make sure we're giving intentional choices, and that we're letting them lead their IEP meeting. Just occurred to me, I have some more slides on this, so I'm going to go on to the next one. So here's an example of exploring. This is a young woman, Cassidy Bauer, who was a college student, and she wrote her own book. And so this is a story, and again, this is on the Think College website. This is a story about Cassidy and what she did when she was in college, and some of the things that she did. So that's exciting to read about, and for your sons and daughters to read about, and to begin thinking about the opportunities that they have now in high school. Support. Families need support in how to look for things, how to understand what planning for college takes. And this is another page from the Think College Learn site that I showed you that talked about, planning for college, transitioning, paying for college. So this is that set of modules. Growing self-determination while fading supports. There's this student profile. And career in college is really important. And I think it's been really hard as parents to be able to push forward and say, no, my son or daughter is going to work or is going to college. Because we seem to be taught from a young age that when our children were young, that they weren't capable. And we really have to turn that around. That sense of self-determination is crucially important. And I know some families have told me that their son or daughter is telling them, the parent, I'm going to college. So you also have that perspective. But I think we also have that if they didn't know it was an option, it's never something that they're thought about. One idea for you is when the college tours happen at your high school, at your son or daughter's high school, you need to find out and get your son or daughter to attend the tour. They're not generally invited because no one thinks about it, but they're invited. They should be invited. Let them take a college tour. Whether they have a program for students with intellectual disabilities or not, doesn't matter. You want them to have the vision of going to college, and that's one way to begin to access that. It's our job as families to teach agency, to teach that my son has the ability to make choices that affect his life. And that means letting him, in certain circumstances, fall down and then have to figure out how to fix it, how to get up, how to solve the problem, how to deal with the consequences of failing at something like being on probation at college. So those are some things that it's really important to build in them that sense of resilience, and also to help them understand they set their own goals. I remember when I went to for my master's program, I was applying. And I remember it said, what are you going to do in 5 years after your program? And I made something up. I said, I'm going to affect statewide change for students with disabilities. And 5 years later, after my program, I was doing that. I just made it up. But when you write things down, when you intentionally choose goals, you work toward them, whether you realize it or not. So we've got to help our young adults choose goals. These are some wonderful webinars that we have and resources that we have that I have pictures of here. And again, these are on that hyperlink page. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, when we have to allow our sons and daughters to make decisions and reap the consequences of the decisions. And so that's something we call dignity of risk. Now, do we let them risk everything? No, it's mediated risk. We make choices. Sometimes we allow a situation to happen so that if they fail, now they have to learn to pick themselves up. But only some situations, not all. We need to allow them to problem solve. Remember what I said? I don't answer questions. I ask questions of my kids. So when my young son was 6 years old, he was on the jungle gym and he said, Mom, can I jump? I said, I don't know. What do you think? He said, no, I'll hurt myself. I said, okay, probably shouldn't jump then. But that was him working through it. And sometimes he asks just because he wants a confirmation of what he was thinking. So I make him say it. And that's really important. Ask a question back. Don't answer it. Make them answer it themselves. Give them choices. Don't tell them what to do. Wait for them to come to the conclusion. That those are really, really important pieces. And there's not a lot on this slide, but those are so crucial for everyone to think about. And expect. This one is a hard one, I think. Expect content learning, text reading, expect homework, ask for it if they don't give it to you. Expect organization, and you're going to teach it. This is part of the teaching piece as well. Expect employment, whether it's beginning as a volunteer somewhere, because you'll learn an awful lot when you're volunteering, but your sons and daughters can be employed before they go to college and should be. Expect them to be engaged in high school, in some of the fun stuff, in the I can't even think of what it's called. My son's got it right there. The book that they do, the yearbook. Expect them to be involved in the yearbook or on the newspaper or whatever it is, involved in something in college. When I talk about content learning, that doesn't mean if they read on a 4th grade level and they're in junior English, that they're learning all the English that all the other students in that inclusive class are learning. It means they are learning what's happening in there, and they are learning some of it. The same thing with text reading. Reading doesn't have to be physically moving your eyes to read. It can also be listening to audiobooks and digital text. So there's ways to do this. It's not kind of the old school, if you will. All right, and I know I have to speed up. I'm almost there. This one is what makes college successful, and I loved this. This was asking students who had attended college in Massachusetts, and they said having independence on campus, choosing my own schedule, being myself, or getting to reinvent myself if I want to. College can be a reset button. If high school wasn't any fun, it wasn't for me, and college was a reset for me. It can also be for these students as well. Being with other college students, and you know what? When they go to college, the disability seems to not really matter nearly as much. They're just a peer, becoming an educated person. They get to take courses that they want to take, that they get to choose courses. And then what needs to improve? They said, we want more opportunities to take the college classes we want to take. So this is from the student's perspective. I just loved it. I thought it was a wonderful insight into what's happening with the students who are in college. And I wanted to mention, you all have a New York Department of Ed's transition planning guide. And so I know that Ori will tell you a little bit about where to find that, but I wanted to mention that to you. And then also on the resources that I have provided for you, and I'll show you, I've got a page here. So each one of these resources that I talked about, there is that link that I know Ori will provide. And I'm going to stop there because I know I've gone over.
No, you have not at all. That was an amazing presentation. I just want to make sure we can get to the questions, as
Yes.
you do have a few. So I want to make sure we get into that. But thank you for that amazing presentation. So let's go right into the questions. First one, right off the bat. So there was someone who was talking about that even though that their child may have an intellectual disability, they're on track to receive their diploma. So when you're going through the Think College website, is there like a list of colleges or a way that you can kind of filter out the search to find more hospitable or accommodating for students with intellectual abilities who are on track to receive a bachelor's degree?
To receive a bachelor's degree or a high school diploma?
A bachelor's degree.
Oh, okay. So if that's the case, and that's a really good question, because these programs are set that students aren't earning degrees because they typically can't. That doesn't mean all of our students with intellectual disabilities can't. And I absolutely mean that. Those who can don't need this level of support in these programs. And so what you're going to do with that then is to meet with the Office for Students with Disabilities. Every college campus has one, and talk to them about what resources and supports are available. And there will be different levels at every college. Again, you want to look for a good fit for your son or daughter when you're looking, because you're going to get different answers depending on what college you go to from the Disability Services Office. Some of them are just amazing in how, individualized they are with the students, and others not so much. So again, you're going to look for a good fit.
Right. No, that absolutely makes sense. And that's actually a good transition actually to another question we got, which was kind of about that fit and that accommodation, because the question basically is about that. Are the accommodation services usually recommended on someone with students IEP offered in college? Is there is there a similarity in how they transition over? And is there a process in which that is kind of helped for that transition?
Right. So often the office, Disability Services Office, will ask for the IEP so they have that access to what those services were. Not all of them are. So that would be a great thing to do, is to call up a Disability Services Office at any college near you and say, and look at your list and find out which ones are available at college. And for example, there are things available at college that are not available in high school. So for example, there's a software program called Read Out Loud. No, I'm sorry, Read Write Gold. There's a couple of them. And typically Read Write Gold isn't something that the high schools give the students on their laptops. It is something that you can get on your laptop in college if you have the need for that, if you have a reading disability. And if you have an intellectual disability, you probably have a reading disability. Even though you're not identified as such, you would have one.
Right. Okay, so that's great. So there is ways to kind of to do that. And we also got like a quick question was about, is there a way, I guess, do these programs offer completion of their GED? I know you kind of just mentioned it a little bit before on the differences, but just to kind of, get the wraparound on directly answering that question.
So what was the question? Do they get
offer
the GED?
complete? Yeah, do they offer completion for their GED?
Oh, completion for it. I think, again, it's going to depend. If it's a university, probably not. If it's a community college, probably. If it's a technical college, probably. So again, it's going to depend on the institution. Now, when I say probably or probably not, if you are out in, I think it's Utah, there's a university there that has all three of those things. They have technical college stuff at this university. They have GED stuff at which I went, what? Because there's fewer programs, fewer institutions out there. So they tend to do more at each one. So your job is to call and ask.
So yeah, it never at the end of it never hurts to ask. So, like, I mean, a lot of like the recommendation really for as kind of what at least what I'm getting from you, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's like at the end of the day, just pick up the phone, ask when you've
Yes.
really gone through the website and you've gone through this filter, then just start the dialogue.
Yeah,
Really.
absolutely. And if you have questions about that, then ask me, and then I'll direct you where to ask. So again, it's that thinkcollegeta@gmail.com.
Absolutely. And just so before I get in the next, just so everyone reassured, as Kathy had mentioned many times, and I want to make sure I hold myself accountable to mention it on the webinar, I will be putting together a couple of key handouts from tonight's presentation, the resources links and the Hyperdoc that she keeps mentioning, with all the resources links to the website as well. We will make sure that I send that out in tomorrow's email with the recording obviously posted to YouTube. So don't, also you can always rewatch it, but just rest assured that we will send out all those links and helpful resources. And then we have a question. I think this is it can be kind of broad asking. It's how many students are accepted in programs compared to how many apply. I think that's a really important question, but I also a follow-up of my own too to kind of wrap that around too. It's also how best for those students to prepare, not only for having multiple options, but then to handle either the rejection or not getting everything that they might have thought they wanted.
Right. Well, and again, this is the adult learning opportunities, right? That this is the real world. And so we're trying to figure this out. How many apply and how many are accepted? These programs, for the most part, are about 10 to 12 students in a program. That's not very many. There are a couple of institutions where the programs are larger. You might have 30 or 40 students with intellectual disabilities in these programs, but that's maybe 10 or less. And there's over 300. So your average number is going to be around 10 to 12 or 10 to 15. And so if that's how many they have in altogether, their cohorts are going to be small. They're going to maybe accept 6 a year. And some programs are very competitive. So I would suggest that you look at the programs on the websites, do your due diligence, call and ask questions. It doesn't matter if they get tired of you. This is your job to call and find a best fit. All right. So it doesn't matter if they get tired of you, call and ask questions. It is important to help the student understand that you don't get accepted to every college, that any student, whether you have a disability or not, you don't get accepted to every college. Also, some programs will say, you're not ready yet. And not many, but I have heard of some of them doing that. You can call the program back and say, you went through the interview process, you did all of that, and they said, we didn't accept you. You can ask them why. And they might tell you, well, I really felt like you, Jenny, needed to grow in this area so that you would be safe on campus, or whatever it was, so that they're going to give you some good ideas of what you can do. You can reapply to the same program and get accepted. So because you've not been accepted once doesn't mean you won't be accepted the next time. And it's good to apply to more than one.
Very true. And I mean, I know I didn't get into every program that I ever, that I applied to. So I think it's a natural. And I don't want to keep you too long. I want to wrap it up with one more question that we have, which I think is a good way to kind of wrap around this presentation tonight. And I think I think my answer in my head for you would be the kind of how you described, when you talk to your son. But someone asked, my son is a junior in high school with autism and is high functioning. Does Think College work for him?
So my question to that is, here I go asking a question to a question, is what is his goal for going to college? Does he want to earn a degree? Because if he wants to earn a degree, the answer would probably be no. He doesn't need that level of support. And I will tell you, he probably doesn't have an intellectual disability, but he does have a developmental disability. And I hate that that's so confusing, but it is. So if your son has autism and he's high functioning, which probably means he's on grade level for reading, pretty close to grade level for math, those kinds of things, then there are a number of programs around the country that are providing additional support for students who are degree seeking and have autism. So if you send me a question, send me that question to the email, and I'll be able to give you those lists, even though that's not our forte. Because we've had so many people ask that question, I have a couple of links that I can send you of lists of those programs.
Right. Like you said, it never hurts to ask.
Yep.
On that note, Kathy, thank you so much for this presentation. I really enjoyed it. I know I'm sure many families enjoyed it. I really appreciated how personal you were and really walking through the Think College website. Yeah, I'm really grateful that you were able to take your time tonight to kind of bring this presentation to everyone.
And I just want to thank you for being patient for my technological errors or whatever it was that I did that messed me up, but we're good. I didn't lose connection. I had power. So
absolutely. It's not a real Zoom webinar if there's not a little bit of the technical issue. So I think
exactly.
we cleared it there. But everyone, thank you for joining. As I said, recap email to come tomorrow, and more information on next week's Beyond Access webinar, which will be around revolving around newly arrived families to New York. So look out for that. But again, thank you, Kathy. We really appreciate it, and hope everyone has a good rest of your evening.